Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me okay in the back? All right, good. Yeah, I'll speak up. So thank you for being here tonight. This is basically a general information meeting to give you an overview of some city projects that are coming up. But quick housekeeping, if you could silence your phones. Restrooms are back out the door, turn to your right, and then head to the left down the hall, and that's where you'll find the restrooms. So this project primarily is about two elements. One is drainage, some work the city is going to be doing in the Templeton Gap floodway area in the neighborhood, and to really correct some of the historic flooding that you've all probably experienced. So we'll be talking about that tonight. We'll also be talking about the roads and the right-of-way that the city has annexed into the city. And then we'll also be talking about the annexation opportunity, that there are several, probably a couple dozen properties that are currently in the county mixed in among the city properties, and the city is going to be offering an opportunity if people want to be annexed in from the county into the city. We'll talk about that tonight. Some of you arrived early, had an opportunity for some one-on-ones to meet the people that you can follow up with, call them, and have more in-depth conversations. This was more of a meet and greet tonight. If you did not have a chance to meet with the folks, the project team in the back, they will be here after this meeting. So if you still want to have that one-on-one, please just let the ladies know at the front desk, and they'll take you on back. And again, that annexation from the county into the city is 100% optional. It's just an opportunity that the city is offering. It's not something that is required. So you get an opportunity to hopefully learn about that tonight, and then you have plenty of time to make a decision if you want to move forward with that. So tonight's meeting, we're going to review the process, and then we'll, for about 45 minutes, give a presentation. We have different experts up here that will talk about their various expertise, and then we'll open it up for Q&A at the end. So we think there'll be a lot of questions. We're going to get them all answered. I will say that you've got little cards, index cards we put at every pew, and some pens, just so that you can remember your question. If you could hold your questions while they're giving their presentation, because it could be they'll answer your question during the presentation. But if you want, jot it down on those index cards to remind you, or if you don't want to speak in the microphone, because we'll hand the microphones down to you. If you don't want to speak, you can pass the card down, and then I'll read the question when it gets to the Q&A. So, as I said, we're going to do our best to get all the questions answered. If we don't, there's comment forms out front. You can take one of those, fill it out, take it with you, send it back, leave it here. There's also, the FAQs are on the website. There's also a way you can send us information on the website, so I encourage you to take a look at that. So, I'm going to first mention who our speakers are tonight. We've got the agenda up here, but a little tiny, hard to read. So we've got Adam Copper is with the City Stormwater Enterprise. We have Jeff Bailey sitting down front. He is with City Planning Department. We have Richard Mulady is sitting down front. Richard is with Stormwater Enterprise. John Hottenstein is in the middle. John is with Matrix Design Group. They're doing the engineering design for the drainage project. We have Tim Roberts down front. Tim is with the city traffic. He's a city traffic engineer, city traffic department, traffic planning. And then in the back, I think we have Lieutenant Rudy Eric is in the back. Thank you. He is from the Colorado Springs Fire Department, and he brought the whole team with him. Thank you. They're going to talk a little bit tonight as well about what the historic flooding has been like and some of the dangers that have gone on down in that area. So then after, as I said, after all the presentations, we'll have a Q&A. And then I did want to mention that this meeting is being recorded. That way we can put it on the city webpage. For people unable to come tonight, they have a way to go back and look at the presentation. It also helps us with the frequently asked questions. So when it comes to FAQs, I don't have to sit there and write everything down. So before I turn it over to the project team, I would like to introduce your city councilwoman, Nancy Henjum, who would like to say a few words. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Lisa. And of course, I am not the city council representative for many of you who are in the county, but this area is in District 5. I have been the District 5 representative since April of 2021. District 5 goes from essentially I-25 on the west to about Powers on the east, from about Platte on the south to about Fillmore, sneaking over to Austin Bluffs, up to Powers on the north. So I am here to listen and learn as well. I learned a bit about this project, but I am also listening and learning. I am available. You're more than welcome to come talk with me if you want to email me, follow up. If there's a way that I can be supportive as a city council person, I am happy to do that. I do want to acknowledge that I'm sure that some of you, I've actually had conversations with some of you. I know some of you are very angry and upset. Some of you are concerned. Some of you might be happy about what you hear. My invitation to you is to first listen and learn and write down those questions, and hopefully you can get the answers that you need. I would also ask our presenters at some point, I didn't ask this in prep, but just to set some context about how having an enclave in a city and a city growing around it, it creates challenges from a design perspective, from curb and gutter and sidewalks and roads. It gets very complicated, and I've heard some of those challenges. So that is what it is, but it does create challenges that might be some of the benefit to potentially coming into the city. The last thing I want to just let you know about, and I can't remember who, I asked for someone from Colorado Springs Utilities to be here. Who is that? And it's Todd Sturdivant. He's back. You want to just raise your hand again, Todd? He's back there by the door. If you have questions about CSU and utilities and what that might mean, Todd can answer your questions, because that is potentially, I'm going to tell you, yesterday at a board meeting, we listened to a case of somebody in Park Vista on the other side of Austin Bluffs whose well has gone dry, and they are now getting their water from a hose from a neighbor, and they are having to come into the city. So I'm not saying that that is the case for any of you here, but that is another potential reality or another potential reason that you might want to consider annexing in. So that's all I have to say. I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much. And who am I passing it to? Lisa.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, I'd like to introduce Adam Copper now, who is the project manager with the City Stormwater Enterprise. So, Adam.
All right, thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Copper. I'm with the City Colorado Springs Stormwater Enterprise. I am the project manager for this project. First off, I'd like to thank Pastor Schultz and the Lighthouse Baptist Church for hosting us tonight. It's great that there's a community place here that is willing to host us. So thank you for the church for allowing us to come in here tonight. I just want to give you a kind of a brief overview. Many of you are very familiar with the area that live here or own property here, but I just want to give you an overview of kind of where we are and what we're doing. So this area, Park Vista South, was platted in the 1950s, and it was platted in the county. The city has since grown around this neighborhood, and there's still remaining areas here that are in the county in the middle of the city. And as Nancy mentioned, this creates a challenge for the city and the county. It creates a challenge for the county to provide services to these residents, to these lots in the middle of the city. So in 2022, the city and the county came to an agreement and signed an intergovernmental agreement that the county has now gave all the roadways to the city, and the city will be annexing all the roadways into the city. And what that does is it transfers ownership and maintenance of the patchwork of county roads in this neighborhood all into the city. The city has some improvement plans planned for 26-27 to come through, which will also, as you'll hear, allow for some time for if annexation comes in and utility connections so that the city can come and do roadway improvements at that time. The other part of what the agreement did was the county gave the city $5.5 million of American Rescue Plan Act federal funding that the county had. This funding is to go towards the improvements we're going to talk about. In addition, with bringing this area into the city stormwater enterprise is able to also bring up to $5.5 million to address the drainage needs, specifically the Templeton Gap, the large floodway channel through the neighborhood. We're going to talk about annexation. There's, like I mentioned, there's county properties that are still in the middle of the city. What annexing does is brings that lot into the city. This is a completely voluntary annexation that the city is offering to help lead to incentivize properties to come into the city. In addition, some of you may have received letters. The city is also, with this project, going to need to purchase some easements and some properties that the drainage channel runs through. If you got some of those letters and have questions, please find me afterwards and we can talk some more about it. One of the other big improvements is Templeton Gap's a large ditch drainage channel that goes through the south end of this neighborhood, and it's had virtually zero improvements as it's been quasi-county, city throughout. So one of the big goals of this project is also to improve that drainage channel so it won't erode and to make it safe. We're also going to talk about traffic patterns. Traffic engineering's here, and they'll explain some of the traffic behavior in the neighborhood and how our improvements are expected to improve those. And also we're going to discuss specifically Seifert and Date Street. Right now, Seifert and Date Street is an intersection that's actually in the very bottom of the drainage channel. The drainage channel of Templeton Gap floodway goes over the roadway, over that intersection, and leaves the neighborhood and creates a very high safety concern, and we're going to talk about that. And again, if you guys have any questions, we'll have the Q&A afterwards. And if you don't have my contact information, some of the flyers out there have my contact information. Please reach out to me. So with that, I'll introduce Jeff Bailey, and he's going to talk a little bit more about annexation.
Thank you, Adam. Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Bailey. I'm with planning. I will be handling the annexation of all the city right-of-way and property, and also any of the private properties of the people that would like to join us. As it was mentioned before, this is purely voluntary. You're not going to be forced to do anything like that if you don't want to. But with that, do have some incentives that we would like to present to you if you decide to jump on board with the city. The first thing I'd like to throw out is you've got some time to think about this, to do some due diligence on your own, to check things out, to make sure this is the right thing for you. September 1st of next year is going to be the cutoff time to where anything after that, we won't accept. We won't accept any more people coming on board for the city to do it. If you decide after that you are on your own. And I don't know if I can do, here we go. Real quick, just to give you a real brief, the right-of-way, most of it's in the purple. We do have some city lots that are in the purple. This is what we currently own. We are also in the process of talking to some people about purchasing additional lots that we need for our drainage improvement itself. This is another reason why I'm kicking the time out a little further so that we can get all that together so I can just do it in one shot and take care of it all at once. This also, like Adam said, this whole area that's colored, that's the enclave area. That's the area that's in the county itself. So why annex? That's a good question. Typically you annex to get city services, such as police, fire. You get access to city utilities, water, sewer. We will maintain the roads. That's part of the reason why we're annexing it in. So there's possibly other reasons that you may want to annex now versus later on. Some of you probably are on a septic system, possibly have a well. Either one of them could go bad and you're forced to hook up to city utilities itself. If you annex along with the city, then we're paying for some of that cost for you instead of you having to pay it on your own. So again, like I said, I want to mention, it is all volunteer. So don't think we're forcing you into anything that you don't want to do. Contact me and we can walk through the whole process. So this is a one-time offer. Again, you've got till September the 1st of next year to decide, and we'll go from there. Pardon me while I put these on because I can't read without them. Oh, sorry. So some of the things that and I think this is on the next slide here. Oops, sorry. Okay, some of the advantages if you go with the city on annexing, the things that will save you in a cost is the application fees for annexation. We will take care of the zoning fee for application. We will take care of. There's a lot of different things that go involved in both the annexation process and the zoning process. We will prepare the plats. We will prepare the legal descriptions, the vicinity maps, the other types of documents that are necessary for this. We will also provide other incentives such as a no-cost excavation permit. This will be for up to 2 years after the annexation plat's been recorded. This is, if you dig out in the public right-of-way, you have to have a permit. So this would be a no-cost permit for that. There'd be a no-cost concrete. Is your curb and gutter and your sidewalk. And then we also offer it's a degradation fee, a no degradation fee, which is essentially if you cut open the asphalt roadway, we have a charge that we charge per, I think it's a square foot cost. We will waive that for up to 2 years after the plat has been recorded. And the only kicker about that is as long as we don't have new asphalt out there within the last 6 years, but as of right now, we don't have any new asphalt out there. So, so all of this, like I said, that's about a $12,000 approximate cost. If you hire a consultant to help you pull together all these documentations, you get them submitted, you pay your fees, you're talking about $12,000 savings on that if you decide to jump on board with the city to help you out with that process. I'm just briefly going over it. I have talked to a few people. You probably might have more deeper questions that you might like to ask about it if you actually are thinking about it. My contact information is there. I do have some cards I'll have out there. And just get a hold of me. I'd be more than happy to help walk you through some other things that you may have questions about on this process. So with that, I think I'm passing it off to Richard Mulady. Thank you.
Let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
If we've already paid the 12,000 in fees, can we get them back?
No.
Really?
Yes, sir.
That's kind of communist, isn't it?
No. You didn't come on board with us. The new Colorado Springs.
Test
I think
us.
she's
If we
gonna
could
ask.
hold off on the questions until the end, hold the question, write it down on the index card so that we don't forget it, and then we'll get to them at the end. That way they can get through all of the presentation. Thanks.
That's my fault. I said yes.
It's all right. That's why I'm here, Richard.
Yeah. Richard Milady, I'm with the Stormwater Enterprise. I wanted to talk about a few things that are leading us to want to do the project specifically related to the channel. Okay. But before I do, I do want to say a few things about the difficulty, and Lisa had mentioned about the difficulty of this county enclave in the city. And I mean, you guys live here, and I just heard a comment about the asphalt. So someone just said, "Hey, it hadn't been paved in a long time," right? Well, that is what happens when you have a county enclave that gets surrounded by the city. And Adam said it earlier. It makes it difficult for the two entities to kind of work together, and it makes it difficult for the county to maintain their infrastructure, right? I mean, their yards are a long way away. They have other, responsibilities and issues they're worried about. So I just wanted to say, when the county enclaves kind of get stuck like that, you will see drops in services, and that's what you see. You also see, it's like, and I was telling this to Councilwoman earlier, it's like the square peg in the round hole, because the county infrastructure, if you think about it, when this was built, this was all fields, and it had the roads were rural roadways with side ditches. You know what I mean? There was nothing above it that drained to it. I mean, it was greenfield with cattle. And now we have dense subdivisions around, we have commercial, we have pieces and components of curb and gutter that are trying to match in with, swales on each side of the road. And those are some of the issues. I talked to a gentleman earlier that's having that issue on his property. And so I just wanted you to kind of think about it, what this process will achieve ultimately, and especially if we get people that are interested in annexing, is a more uniform area of the city that looks like it should have been if it was planned originally. So I just wanted to, I don't know if that made any sense, but if you kind of think about it like that, it would be very different if it was planned to be an urban city setting from the get-go. So that's what I think we'll achieve. Let me talk a little bit about the channel. This project was identified in an agreement between the city of Colorado Springs and Pueblo County. I think a lot of you folks have been around. Oh, what did I say? No, I said Pueblo. Yeah, Pueblo. Yeah, sorry. So it is in El Paso, but it was part of the Pueblo County IJ agreement. So a few years ago, you guys might remember, City of Colorado Springs was involved in a major lawsuit. The EPA sued the city for noncompliance of a stormwater permit for the Clean Water Act. At the same time, Pueblo County and Lower Arkansas Valley joined into that lawsuit. That was in federal court for about 7 years, and we worked through a very long process to settle that lawsuit. And at the same time, the city had built the Southern Delivery System pipeline that brings water from Lake Pueblo. In order to turn that pipeline on and supply the water supply for our city for the future, and we had to agree some terms with Pueblo, and one of their terms was to have a functioning and funded stormwater program and to do certain projects that are within the city limits, but that, if done, would help everybody downstream. That was a long explanation, but I want you to know that because this project was one of those identified, okay? And the reason is it leads to, erosion, sedimentation, flooding downstream. That obviously hurts the neighborhood, it hurts the downstream, but it also leads to problems down in the lower Ark and the lower Pueblo area. So that's why we agreed to do this project under that agreement. So I think the second bullet kind of speaks for itself. So everybody knows this. The channel has been neglected. And that is because of that issue I talked about earlier. When you have a county enclave, the city's like, hey, it's not us. The county says, well, it's really far away, And so you've seen that lack of maintenance. And it's led to flooding. And we're going to talk, and the fire department has some folks here that are going to show you some of that and talk about that. I think it's really important to talk about that. We are doing this project under the same premise that we do every project, and that is the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And our job is to do work, to do projects, and to maintain infrastructure that protects public safety, public property, and private property. And that's what we're trying to do here. This one is a pretty glaring because there's some videos you'll see. I mean, I seldom do see a project that we really have had people, you know, in serious danger to that effect. And there's a lot of public property and private property that I spoke to that's being damaged because of the flooding of the creek. So that's why we want to do it. The last one, which is going to be a huge benefit, especially to some people above, when we do this, it will remove several properties from the floodplain. So what that means is if you're in what's called the 100-year floodplain, by the way, that doesn't mean it happens once every 100 years. It means every year you have a 1% chance of that magnitude of an event. We're not going to go through statistics, but somehow that works out. So it will, if you are in that, and most people know this, you have to have flood insurance on your property. It's very expensive, right? By fixing the conveyance in this channel, we're going to remove several people from the floodplain, which is going to, they will not be required to have flood insurance anymore, which will save them a lot of money. And so that's a benefit. That won't be a benefit to everybody because it's not possible, but it will be to some. These are just some pictures of, and fire is going to cover this, but I think you guys have seen it. This is Seaford and Dade. I mean, that's the intersection. And, I think it was Adam talked earlier. It's called a Texas crossing, ironically enough. And that just means we're going to drive right down into the creek and drive right back up. And that's what we have there. And in the city of Colorado Springs, we don't allow that. We would never allow that. But it was built that way because, again, this was built in the county. If it was built towards city standards, if someone submitted the idea to have a Texas crossing, we would say no. I think we have a little video here, maybe. Hopefully this works. Let's see. Yeah, this is some flooding. This is 09, but I mean, I think, we have videos. This happens, pretty regularly. Again, this is just coming through Seaford and Dade. So that kind of gives you an idea of the magnitude of flows that have happened right down the street. This is a map that can kind of visualize that floodplain reduction. So the floodplain is the extent that would be underwater during that 100-year event, which is, again, every storm, you have a 1% chance of that happening. It doesn't sound like a lot, by the way, but if you had a 1% chance of winning that $1.7 billion lotto, we all would have bought a lot more tickets. So it does happen, right? And actually, a 1% annual event typically happens in about every storm, just in isolated areas, okay? Maybe not all over the city, but certainly in an isolated area. So this is a kind of this is a map of the floodplain and some of the floodplain reduction. That's what I had, and I'm going to turn it over, I think, to our design engineer to talk about the design. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Hottenstein. I'm project manager with Matrix Design Group, and we've been working with the city for about a year now, designing this project. And so I'm going to talk about a little bit about what the actual construction and what the design intent is going to look like for the project itself. So these exhibits are all out in the front, and I hope you guys all had a chance to go look out and see those exhibits a little bit more closer detail. And afterwards, I'd be happy to kind of talk a little bit more in detail if you guys have specific questions. So in general, we're going to be opening up that ditch. That ditch right now is pretty narrow, and it's just too small to be able to convey that flow that, like Richard talked about, there's a lot of development. And when we have that development upstream, that development causes more runoff to occur. And so because you have that development upstream, that has increased the flooding through the project area. And so we need to widen up that ditch, open it up so that you can convey that flood without spreading out like it is. One thing that was important to note that I know I've heard a lot from you is that we are really just focusing on the ditch and trying to get the water that's in the ditch away from the project area as quickly as possible. So flooding on the roads and stuff, that should help because it'll start moving away as it goes through, but there won't be installation of like inlets and storm drain networks in the roads themselves. So we'll be making a constructed channel to show some examples as we go through there, and then we'll have these concrete drop structures that are really kind of a feature and an aesthetic element, and I'll show some examples of those as well. So this is an example of a project we recently worked with the city on and constructed. This is Cottonwood Creek, just north of Woodman between Austin Bluffs, and Powers Boulevard. And so this is kind of what we like to design, and this is kind of our ethic when we look at designing natural channels. We really want to make it kind of a feature and an element and an asset to the community, because it does only flood. It floods for what, maybe an hour or two, maybe once or twice a year. And so what is it doing the rest of the time? So we're going to be removing kind of that the eroding banks where we have sheer high cliffs areas. We know there's a lot of rubble and debris concrete that's just been kind of placed there over time. So we'll be removing all that, and we'll be grading out kind of at nice slow banks that you can walk down and just vegetating it with natural grasses and natural plants. These are examples of some of the concrete drop structures that we talked about. These concrete drop structures are not just, pure concrete that's just gray and flat and ugly. We really try to sculpt them and work with our contractors to kind of make them an aesthetic element that you kind of want to go see and want to go look in. So we kind of sculpt them to look like bedrock. We actually even we had a dye to it, and so it changes, or so it makes it a color that kind of blends into the environment. So we really try to make it look like a natural featured element. And then we work with our contractors. Sometimes they get really fun and have some excitement with it, and they'll put tree branches and log stumps to kind of just add some variability. So each drop structure is unique. At Cottonwood Creek, they even got really unique and put the elusive turtles that are in Colorado. So they kind of have fun with it and try to really create some like Easter eggs for each of those structures as they go through. So this is at the downstream end. This is the intersection of Date Street and Seaford. So our goal here, and Tim will be talking a little bit about this, is we do want to remove that intersection. Like Richard talked about earlier, we want to protect health and safety. That intersection is a danger, and then the fire department will be talking about some of the swiftwater rescues that have occurred there. So we're removing that intersection, replacing it with 3 cul-de-sacs. The goal is to maintain access to all the existing owners, or all the existing businesses and residential accesses. So we'll having driveways and other accesses that'll maintain what's currently existing. At the upstream end, we know that Hopeful Drive, that bridge, is currently undersized. And so we'll be opening up that bridge to be a little bit wider. And so again, that'll help that flood that conveyed go through it and not be backed up. I think we've talked with some property owners that have mentioned that they have actually been flooded out a couple times in recent years through there. And so by opening up that bridge and widening it a little bit, we'll be able to pass that flood conveyance through the bridge, and that'll go downstream, and it won't and so it will no longer be a risk to flooding. And so that's really what's going to help provide that flood risk reduction and take a lot of people out of the floodplain. And so you won't have those flood insurance premiums that Richard was kind of mentioning a little bit earlier. So we do recognize that a lot of the proposed channel improvements, they are going through some private property. And our team has reached out to most property owners. So if you haven't been reached out to and you believe you are going to be affected, feel free to talk to us. If you have been affected, you have been reached out or sent a letter asking to talk about what the options are for that. And then the other thing we wanted to talk about was just at Seaford and Date Street, there are significant utility lines underneath that road. There's a 20-inch high pressure gas line, a 10-inch high pressure gas line, a 36-inch water line. And so those are major, major utilities that are very, very expensive to relocate, as well as very dangerous to relocate, just because they convey a lot of stuff. So that is one of the primary constraints that we have. I know some people have talked about building bridges. That was one of the first things we looked at, is really lowering that channel, seeing if we can do anything else, or putting a culvert in or some sort of alternative to keep that access open. And given the constraints of those utilities and just the cost, just how expensive they were to relocate, that was something we just weren't able to do given the budget constraints that we had. So then I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, John. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name's Tim Roberts, and I don't have it on my slides, so let me say this. If you want to contact us about any traffic issues related to this project, send a comment to the Adam Copper email address that he mentioned. If you have a non-project traffic issue, please send it to me. I'm sorry I didn't put it on my slide here, but it's tim.roberts and then the same extension as Adam, coloradosprings.gov. So that's tim.roberts@coloradosprings.gov for any project traffic questions. Before I get into my next slide, I want to assure you guys, and Nancy had mentioned this, we're here to listen and learn. I'm here to listen and learn, and we're also here to share information. But I can tell you that we do know that there's some traffic issues with this, especially cut through. I know that Seaford is the one that we're focusing on. We also know that Hopeful is another location that we're having cut through problems, and I'll touch base on that shortly. As you all know, because you guys have reached out to this, you live this daily, traffic is cutting through the neighborhood from Austin Bluffs south to North Carefree. And if you look at a map, and we'll have a map here in the next slide, and we have collected data, and yes, it's true. When we look at the data, the southbound traffic on Hollow Drive is about 1,000 vehicles higher than the northbound traffic. And you kind of look at that on a historic level, and that's what it's been. I've been with the city 24 years, and I believe the first time I've heard about traffic issues with Hollow Drive was in about the 2003 or 4 time period, and it's been an issue. We've been monitoring it. We actually have a neighborhood traffic management program. Both Hollow Street residents and Hopeful Street residents have reached out to us, and we've collected data. There's been times where you haven't met the threshold. Actually, Hopeful does. And Seaford has just been on our monitoring for a while. This allows us to kind of look at both roads to do solutions. The roadway flooding, as far as safety with the project, and I'm related to, is we do have that flooding. You guys live here, you've seen the slides, but you don't need to see that. You live here, you've seen it, you experience it when it rains. There is that safety issue, and there are people, knuckleheads, wanting to try it. And it happens. So, this project is going to address some of those people who think that, I'm fearless and I can go do it. And then fire department has asked the city, Public Works to, hey, we need a permanent solution because it takes a lot of manpower, a lot of time when they could be out doing it, looking at focusing on other things. And I'm not going to speak for them, but they're here tonight to also discuss it. The actual earliest count we could find for the neighborhood was 1995. It was more of a concern with a traffic signal at Hollow and North Carefree. And I can tell you that kind of on the research of that, the reason why it has not been signalized is exactly what's going on today is we have the cut through. You signalize that intersection, you're going to get even more. So it's been looked at. Signal warrants have been conducted, and but we don't want to encourage more cut through the neighborhood. There's 1,000 vehicles cutting through, as I mentioned earlier. If we're talking solutions and the neighborhood traffic management program, we do have a toolbox of solutions. The number one solution to stop cut through traffic would be to close the road, and that's what this project does. In closing a road, we need to look at what are the impacts? What happens if we do close this road? Well, we need to look at that because are we creating another unsafe situation? Are we going to push traffic over to Hopeful? What does it do to Academy and Half Turn? So those are the things we looked at. And I don't want to seem like we don't know all the answers, okay? So please, you got to give us feedback. Of course, we do our analysis, we look at it, and we make a lot of assumptions, but that's why we do the Q&A, and that's why we do this process, because you guys live here and we don't know it, so we're going to need this feedback, and that's what I'm saying. It's a listen and learn for us too. So, but in our analysis of this, we saw that we wanted to decide what's the impact on delay, because you're going to have some more delay because that ease of access is not there anymore. And what we did is we looked at the travel time from Seaford over to Doherty High School, because it's an easy thing and a real trip for the residents. And we find that in peak hours, it's going to increase travel time from 3 to 5 minutes, but off peak, it's 1 to 2 minutes. So I'm not going to tell you it's not inconvenient, but it's not a horrible inconvenience either. And I can tell you that with this change, you're going to notice a huge difference. I mean, it's going to be noticeable on that Hollow Drive in Seaford. There will not be cut through traffic It's going to be more. It's going to function more like a cul-de-sac, at least north of Half Turn. And then I mentioned this, that we're looking at Half Turn in Academy when we know there's going to be impact there. Just because we close Seaford, that doesn't mean people are automatically going to stop trying to find shortcuts. And we do feel that Half Turn and Hollow will still try to be a shortcut, so people don't go all the way to North Carefree. We need to look at that. We need to look at that. We feel a signal at that location is a good solution to improve safety for the access, because now you're going, you don't have the Seaford connection. So now you're going to be going from Academy, Half Turn, and into the neighborhood. And you don't have the protection of that signal. So that's something we want to do with this project. I don't want to promise it. I can't promise it tonight because we still need to do our investigation of, like, there's a driveway across on the west side of Academy. We got to look at our right-of-way impacts. Are there utilities in the way? Is there an obstacle that would preclude us from doing that? We want to do it. I don't want to promise you, but we do want to do it. We're going to look into that as part of this project.
Could you step aside so I could take a picture of that? I can't see it.
Oh, how about I could come to this side. Okay. Oh yeah, and that's right. And these slides, actually the presentation will be on the project website. Is it on there now? Okay. This is the map of the area. We did have Hopeful Drive on here also, showing that we are looking at that, but we took it off because last thing we want to do is announce to the rest of the city, hey, this is another shortcut. We're addressing this one, but now there's this other one, and we don't want to have that announced to the rest of the city. See if I can figure this out. Here's where we're talking about the signal at Half Turn and Academy. And then, of course, this is the cut-through pattern right here. And you can see how that is much shorter than going all the way this way and dealing with the signal at this location or going this way here. Even though that's the travel pattern we want the rest of the city to take if they're going to North Carefree. This project helps us correct that. We feel this signal here will help make it a safer access to the neighborhood. And I can tell you, and again, we took it off, but Hopeful Drive is on our radar. We've been doing traffic studies on that last couple of years. It meets our threshold for intervention. So this project actually helps support us doing something on there. The bridge on Hopeful Drive is a great opportunity for us to do some type of traffic calming feature at that location. But let me tell you, regardless of this project, we were coming to address the traffic issues with the neighborhood. I just happened to lose a staff person, actually 2 staff people about a year ago. I've rehired, and now there's 2 projects for us to initiate. One is the Hopeful Drive, and the other one is in the Falcon Estates area. I'm not going to tell you that road because I don't want you to cut through on it.
Got to be on the website, right?
No, not yet. So, but it's nice that this project is here, and this is a crossing point for us to start looking at that. Now, when I start looking at Hopeful Drive, and I don't know how many people are here from Hopeful Drive, but there will be a different public process for that. And it sounds like we may be ahead of actually this project, because this one's going to take a little while longer, but we're going to start the Hopeful Drive process now. If there's a bridge improvement, traffic calming feature, of course, that'll have to wait, but there's other actions we can do to address that. So there is another process coming for Hopeful. This one really addresses the Seaford. We're trying to make it safe for access to the neighborhood. It's a little bit of inconvenience, but tell us your feedback, because we need to know. I don't live there, and you do, so please share your information with us. Whoops. Well, you know what we're looking at. I think I just mentioned most of this. The cul-de-sacs will be city standard. Of course, the closure is the ultimate cut-through solution, because now you've eliminated that opportunity. And then Half Turn. Sorry, I wasn't advancing my slides. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Fire.
Oh, good evening, everybody. My name is Lieutenant Eric Rudinger. Sorry I was a little late to the party, so had a few things going on this evening. All right, so the reason that Adam wanted us to come and speak, perfect, thank you. The reason that Adam wanted us to come up here and kind of talk was we realized that we've got this situation out here where this area floods. You guys are familiar with that. We had some gates installed a few years ago. Yes, that was something that we took to the city and said, hey, we need some help. I know those gates haven't always been the most user-friendly for all of you, but they have been user-friendly on our side, and I want to explain why. A little bit about my background, just so that you understand where I'm coming from. I spent a number of years on our heavy rescue team. I had the opportunity to serve over there, and we do a lot with this sort of thing. This is a very technical rescue that we have to perform. On top of that, once I got done with that team, I promoted and I actually worked for 6 years out of the station that actually serves this area and serves this whole district. So the last 6 years, I've had the opportunity to be able to do that. And so why this is such a big deal? Most of the rescues, we perform lots of different rescues all over the city. The Colorado Springs Fire Department, everything from trench rescue, dive rescues. We've got swiftwater rescues, all kinds of good things. Every single one of those rescues that we have a backup. Okay, there is always a backup to the backup to be able to make something in case something bad happens. We've got a way to be able to capture that and continue on with what we're going to do to be able to make that rescue, to keep the citizens safe, to keep the rescuers safe. Unfortunately, this right here, it doesn't have one. We spent a lot of time. It's been almost 25 years. I've been on the department for 20. I know it's been going on at least 25 years that they've been pulling different people and different vehicles out of this intersection. It continued to be a problem. During the time I was in the program, as well as the time over at Fire Station 10, we continued to try and work on this, having trouble trying to figure out the best way to be able to do this. That being said, this intersection was actually presented at a International Swiftwater Rescue Convention back in 2012. Somebody that was one of our main instructors had gone out there. They made this presentation, said, hey, we're open to ideas on what is the best way to be able to try and rescue somebody from this. With all of those brilliant minds and people doing these rescues all over the world, ultimately it came back and said, why does this exist in your city? That was really what came back from it. So we still had to try and come up with a way to be able to keep people out of the intersections. That did drive us to find a way to be able to make the rescue the best way that we could. At the exact same time, we spoke with the city and they were great enough to be able to try and install the gates. Now we know that's not the most ideal, but here's the thing. We go out and we close the gates whenever we see, water coming. We're like, okay, it's starting to rain. We're going to go close them. We don't know what that flooding is going to look like. All right. But we can't really guess. Some days it's significant. Other days it's not at all. All right. We're going to show you a little video here real quick. See if we can. What do we need to do to get it to play here? Push it one more time. There we go. All right, so we've got this shut off. So we've had a few critical rescues. This was one of the biggest where we had the best video on what happened out of this. Some of you may have seen this before. So that's actually the Seaford intersection there. We have one of our aerial trucks sticking out over the top of the car. One of the other slides that you saw, when we showed up, you actually could not see the vehicle at all. There was 2 young ladies trapped in that vehicle. The water was all the way up and over the top. The problem here is that we have to put somebody out there, and you see our rescuer here, they have to get out in the storm while the flooding, on top of metal, and try and get somebody out the downstream side of this vehicle. Now, here's the problem. I'm going to pause this here. I don't know if I can pause it here. But as they're bringing this person out, what you need to understand is if that young lady falls right now, based on the water, she has 7 seconds. 7 seconds for somebody to do something to try and get her out of there. That's not going to happen. Between personal reaction time, trying to throw a rope to that person, with the amount of trees and everything that are over there and the velocity of water, she has about 7 seconds before she gets sucked into the underground culvert for 1,687 feet. Okay? I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, nobody's going to come out the other side of that. It's the probability of surviving is very, very low. All right? Now, I don't say that to scare anybody. I'm just trying to give you how much of a problem it is for the Colorado Springs Fire Department to perform this rescue. I have personally performed one of these rescues. I've been a part of a couple others to be able to try and get people out. As an officer, I don't even like having to try and put people out on there to train on it. So the best thing for us to do is to be able to eliminate this 100%. That is the only solution we really have at this point. That's where the gates have been nice, all right? So you can see here, yes, it seems like we're doing this pretty easy, and we try and train as much as we can to be ready for these scenarios, okay? But it is hands down probably one of the most dangerous rescues that we do out there because like I talked about earlier, there's no backup. At the end of the day, if one of our rescuers goes in or one of the citizens goes in, unfortunately, the survivability is going to be very, very low, all right? So obviously we use the gates. The downside to this, we actually used to go and we used to block the intersection using apparatus before we had the gates. And you need to understand when we did that, we're trying to monitor what's going on. We would have to leave if a cardiac arrest came in. We'd have to leave if a auto extrication came in. We'd have to leave if a structure fire came in, just leaving it open. And unfortunately, people would still drive through there. It's got signs there, don't drive through it. The problem is it takes such a small amount of water to actually move a vehicle to get trapped up against there. It doesn't take a whole lot, and people underestimate that. Yes, some people have four-wheel drive, they got bigger trucks, they're gonna make it through, they're gonna blast through it, but here's the thing, it just takes once, right? And that's kind of the business we're in. If we can eliminate this hazard, that's the best option for us.
There's no trouble with reducing the gene pool in this world.
Don't know that I'm gonna speak to that right now, but yes, by helping people and making sure that we get those things closed, that's really the best option that we've got right now. Obviously, this being the permanent solution that we're really hoping for. So as you can see in that little top slide up there, that's actually the culvert that you would go into. Down below, you'll actually see the small red line there. That's how far that underground culvert goes. Goes underneath Academy, goes down through the shopping center, comes out off of Antallagen Drive. Okay. I also got to let you know, between all of the stuff that ends up there, it's not only a concrete culvert, but we end up having a lot of homeless in there. They try and remove a lot of the stuff that's in there. The problem is there's a lot of debris. Where I'm going with that is that if somebody ends up in there, like I said, probability of being able to survive is very, very low. So obviously the best solution, it's been very, very nice. We've had a lot of open conversations with the city. It's been nice to be able to start to see this come to fruition. Ultimately, I know it's a little bit of an inconvenience, a couple extra minutes here, a couple extra minutes, maybe 5 extra minutes during that peak time. But really at the end of the day, our whole goal is to try and keep everybody safe, all right, the best that we can. And ultimately, this is going to be the best deal for everybody for this intersection from our perspective. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Rudy. We appreciate that. If you don't mind, Lieutenant Rudy hanging out up here, just in case there's any questions specific to the fire department. So
I got
that
one.
is the conclusion of the presentation.
Lisa,
So
I got one more thing real quick.
Oh, we've got more.
Sorry.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. Thank you, Lieutenant, for sharing that with us. I just wanted to give a quick timeline. We haven't talked about how long is this going to take. So as you can see here, we have about another year to get design and permitting through for these improvements. After that, we have about a 2-year construction window. There's a lot happening with this project, and it's a fairly long corridor. And then after that, we will be doing the floodplain remapping that will help pull residents out of the floodplain. So it's a fairly long process we have, and you can also see some of the timelines there for the annexation deadlines and some of those expectations as well.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for your time coming out. We know your time is valuable. We appreciate it. You see up here the website. Everything's on the website already. The displays, the PowerPoint, we'll put the recording up there. I want to thank the church, Pastor Schultz, for having us here. They've been very accommodating, being in your neighborhood. Yeah, give them a round of applause. They deserve it. And also want to thank the project team, all of you for coming. Rudy, for being here from the fire department, your fellow fire department folks. We appreciate you taking your time, and Councilwoman Henjum as well. So drive safe, and thank you again.
Yeah.